When the director finally called it a wrap, Mrs. Headland immediately packed up and took me away. She didn't want to stay a moment longer. However, as we walked to the parking lot, seeing that tall figure standing in front of the car and approaching us. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. 0.1 Mrs. Headland's mental defense line was instantly shattered. She stood in front of me, her voice trembling. You go, I'll stop him. I stood still, watching the familiar figure come closer. Mrs. Headland was so anxious that she was almost in tears. Go quickly. Garrett walked up to Mrs. Headland, looking at her protective stance like a mother hen. He smiled and gently reached out a hand. Hello, I am the CEO of Silver Group, Garrett Silver. Mrs. Headland was pleasantly surprised as she shook hands with him, excited as if she had seen the god of wealth. Hello, thank you very much for choosing Demi Irivo as the spokesperson for your company. I am also Demi Irivo's boyfriend. The following sentence from Garrett directly stunned Mrs. Headland. Her neck mechanically turned 90 degrees to look at me, her eyes blank. Didn't you say you didn't have a boyfriend? I wanted to answer no, but for some reason, looking at Garrett's faint smile, I felt inexplicably sad. The denial was on the tip of my tongue, but I just couldn't say it. She's been upset with me lately. Sorry to have troubled you. Mrs. Headland seemed as if she had won the lottery from heaven. When she finally left, even her footsteps seemed to be floating. In the vast parking lot, only the two of us were left. Garrett walked towards a car first, took a few steps, and glanced back at me. Get in. It wasn't until I got into the car that I noticed Georgia sitting in the back. After not seeing her for 2 years, she looked haggard as if she had aged 10 years. As soon as she saw me, the resentment in her eyes was about to overflow. Garrett sat in the driver's seat and coldly uttered 2 words. Speak up. Georgia shrugged her shoulders and began to spill the beans. I'm sorry. I silenced Mr. Silver's phone and deleted the call records. I also took the photos secretly. In fact, Mr. Silver just happened to take me to the subway station along the way. I remained silent. Georgia finally couldn't control her tears and burst into tears. Since you left, I haven't had a good day. Mr. Silver keeps sending me on business trips every few days, all kinds of remote places. He even said that if you don't forgive him, he will send me to Arctic. Georgia tugged at my sleeve, crying her heart out. I'm only 26, and now I'm being tortured like I'm 36, and I haven't even had a boyfriend until now. Looking at the huge dark circles under her eyes, I couldn't help but feel sorry for her and comfort her. Ah, don't cry, I forgive you. Georgia immediately stopped crying and said to Garrett with trepidation, I have completed the task. What about Arctic? You don't need to go. Upon hearing this, Georgia did not hesitate at all, immediately opened the car door and got out. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared without a trace, as if there were ghosts chasing her in the car. Garrett glanced ahead, not even sparing a glance at me, and smoothly started the car. Along the way, I tried to speak several times, but Garrett's distant expression scared me off. The scenery outside the car window became more and more familiar, eventually stopping in the city center village. I followed Garrett through a long alley and arrived at the entrance of a low-rise house. Garrett skillfully took out the keys from his pocket and opened the door, with me following him inside. Everything here remained the same as before. Even the bedsheets we once chose together were still sky blue, just a bit faded from washing. Garrett took out a can of beer from the fridge and sat on the sofa, taking a few sips. I moved to sit by the bed, quietly watching him drink. His face showed no change from before, perhaps due to his lack of smiles, lips pressed into a straight line, exuding a cold and distant aura. But for some reason, in this room, looking at him like this, I felt a long-lost warmth surging in my heart. Even the bedsheets felt warm. I suddenly paused. Wait, something doesn't seem right. I quickly got up, and sure enough, a bright red stain on the pure blue bedsheets. Garrett noticed my movement, his eyes following mine, stopping at that small blood stain. His hand holding the beer can paused, his face turning red and then pale. I looked into his eyes and gathered my courage. I didn't prepare that. Garrett frowned. Prepare what? As Garrett realized, his handsome face stiffened, and after a while, he squeezed out a few words from his teeth. Don't even think about it. Go buy it yourself. I remained silent, clutching my stomach, squatting on the floor, watching him. After glaring at me for a few seconds, Garrett finally gave in, frustratedly changed his shoes and left. The nearest 24-hour supermarket was quite far from here. Looking out of the window, I saw Garrett running all the way, his hair gently blowing in the night wind, looking unusually gentle. 15 minutes later, I had changed into fresh clothes and was lying on the sofa watching Garrett busying around with a stiff face. He changed the sheets, did the laundry, then went to the kitchen to make a cup of ginger tea with brown sugar and handed it to me. The pungent smell of ginger hit me, making me involuntarily frown. I don't want ginger, I said. Garrett raised an eyebrow and snorted. I advise you to drink it. Under Garrett's cold gaze, I was forced to finish the cup of ginger tea. After drinking it, my mouth was filled with the spicy taste, my stomach churning, making me feel nauseous. Open your mouth, he said. I subconsciously opened my mouth. The next moment, he placed a candy in my mouth. I took a light sip, and the faint plum flavor spread in my mouth, instantly masking the taste of ginger. Garrett's voice remained cold, tinged with impatience. Yuri, so troublesome. I grabbed his arm and looked up at him. I'm sorry. He lowered his head, staring into my eyes. eyes, speaking each word with unusual seriousness. Sorry for what? For everything. Demi Arrivo, what have I done to make you feel so insecure? To make you believe that I would fall for someone else? His eyes reflected clear pain and helplessness. He hadn't done anything wrong. It was me. And now, because of my doubts, I was doubting his sincerity, assuming he would betray me. It's not your fault. My eyes were swollen, and my throat felt choked. It's my lack of self-belief. I don't deserve your love. Garrett chuckled. You think you don't deserve my love? Then why tarnish my innocence? My emotions shattered by his words. I couldn't cry anymore. Tears lingered on my eyelashes as I stared at him. What does a man like you need innocence for? Garrett coldly snorted. Haven't you seen what netizens say? Innocence is a man's best dowry. You took away my dowry. Do you want me to stay single forever? I glared at him hatefully for a while, then reached out, hugged his waist, and wiped my tears and snot on him. Garrett lifted the hem of his clothes in disgust to wipe my tears. No more crying. You look ugly when you cry. He had a lean figure with a thin layer of muscles on his stomach, looking exceptionally handsome. I couldn't help but sneakily touch it. Unable to bear it any longer, Garrett pulled my hand away, wrapped me in a blanket, and hugged me. At times like this, just be obedient and sleep. I don't know if the brown sugar ginger tea worked, but my stomach felt warm all morning the next day. Since I didn't have a job recently, I followed Garrett to his work in the morning. He worked, and I sat next to him eating and watching movies. At noon, the secretary came in and asked Garrett what he wanted to eat. Without looking up, he nodded towards me. Let her decide. The secretary then noticed there was another person lying on the sofa next to him. I smiled sweetly at her. I want to eat snail noodles. The secretary saw my face clearly, was shocked, and couldn't say a word for a long time. Garrett frowned at me. Don't even think about it. After saying that, he turned to the secretary and coughed coldly. Why are you staring blankly? Order a portion of spare rib soup for her. The secretary then realized, nodded in a hurry, and went out to arrange it. I stood up, walked over and sat on his lap, swaying while holding his neck. But I just want to eat snail noodles. At that moment, the door suddenly opened and the secretary returned. Mr. Silver, you haven't decided what you want to eat yet. Shall I order for you? Garrett pressed my face against his shoulder. I'll have the same as before, and also, bring another portion of snail noodles. Okay, got it. After lunch, Garrett and I were lying on the sofa, watching a movie I starred in. Every time the male lead appeared, Garrett would start criticizing. Can this kind of acting still be considered acting? The way he looks at you is like looking at a piece of pork belly. Has his family gone hungry? He dares to take off his clothes with just that one block of abs? But when my scene came up, he immediately switched to another mode. The disdain in your eyes is very well acted, clearly a method actor. As we were engrossed in watching, the office door was suddenly pushed open, and the secretary rushed in with a computer, completely ignoring Garrett's cold expression. She placed the computer in front of us. Mr. Silver, you're on entertainment news. A striking black headline in the middle of the webpage. Exclusive news. The mysterious backer behind Demi Arrivo emerges. Upon clicking, a photo of me and Garrett walking hand in hand into the company popped up. High definition and clear. The news dissected Garrett's rags to riches story and current wealth, even digging up past relationships. A blurry photo was placed below, showing a boy who was clearly Garrett in his childhood. And because I was looking at him with my head tilted, only a small part of my profile was visible. Netizens were going crazy in the comments section. After getting rich, the man abandoned his first love, the woman became famous, and left her ex-boyfriend. Both scumbags match perfectly, naturally made for each other. No wonder she has such good resources after her debut. Turns out she has a wealthy backer. She has good resources because of her own acting skills. Stop accusing her without evidence. My goddess's acting skills are evident to all. Doesn't the conscience of those who throw dirt on her hurt? Just a passerby, I simply think the two are very compatible. Besides, don't all of you guys have exes? Garrett sent a few photos to the secretary and whispered a few words. The secretary looked excitedly at Garrett with an eager expression. All right, I'll go inform the PR department immediately. Then Mrs. Headland called, speaking rapidly as if firing a machine gun. Don't worry, I'll contact the website to have the news removed. Do you want to take a look at Twitter first? Mrs. Headland fell silent for a few seconds, then let out a roar. Demi Arrivo, are you trying to stir up trouble for me? The matter with your ex-boyfriend hasn't blown over yet. Do you want to be drowned in the spit of netizens? Garrett took the phone, speaking gently and politely. Mrs. Headland, I am the ex-boyfriend they mentioned online. On the hot search list of Twitter, the official account of Silver Group posted a statement. In the statement, it first acknowledged the relationship between its CEO and a well-known female celebrity, detailing Garrett Silver's entrepreneurial history and thanking his girlfriend Demi Arrivo, who had been by his side. It then sharply criticized the unscrupulous paparazzi and stated that legal actions would be taken against the rumor mongers. The grid below was filled with photos of Garrett Silver and me. The first photo was the blurry one previously released by the media, but this one was in high definition, clearly showing me looking up at Garrett. Then there were various hand-holding photos of us from our teens to our 20s, with the one in the middle showing me in a dance dress holding showing Garrett, revealing his face clearly. The backgrounds of the last 2 photos were both in front of Garrett's company. One was when he first started his business. After work he sat on a small electric scooter putting a helmet on me, and the other was the hand-holding photo of us in today's news. Netizens were thrilled. "Oh my gosh, what kind of extraordinary love story is this? It's touching. I thought they were scumbags, but unexpectedly, they are pure love gods." My previous company was also in that building. We both started by renting an office space, but now they have bought the whole building, while our company has long been closed down. They posted publicly in just a few minutes. With such a background, do they even need to consult with the company? Mrs. Headland replied to this netizen using the company's official account. "It's approved by the family. Any objections?" This sentence instantly set the internet on fire. Netizens began referring to the company as family, and for a while, the term family approval became a hot internet meme. Later, during an interview on a talk show, the host brought up this past event. "At that time, countless people were touched by your love story. Everyone said they started to believe in love again because of you too." I looked at someone in the audience and softly said with a smile, "I also started to believe in love again because of him." The audience followed my gaze and spotted Garrett Silver sitting at the back, instantly erupting into screams. A photo of Garrett and me making eye contact was also taken and posted online. Netizens captioned it, "May all of us meet someone who makes us smile at first sight. In this lifetime, I did not miss the person who loved me deeply."